So I think that I'm going to finish this video when I get to my room. I have work to do, but I wanted to wrap up the video here by talking about the subject of Eastern Europe. I realize that Eastern Europe is kind of a politically incorrect term to some people at least, and yet I'm still using it. So the reason why it is not liked by some people is because of the association of the eastern part of Europe with the Soviet Union, communist era. So the line that generally divides Western and Eastern Europe is not a straight line. It is along the borders of the ex-Soviet and communist countries that were part of the Soviet bloc, countries aligned with the Soviet Union, and also Yugoslavia, which wasn't considered to be aligned with the Soviet Union as much as some of the other countries, and then also Albania also being communist. Now, some of those Eastern European countries are west of countries that are considered to be part of Western Europe, such as Greece, for example. The western point of the Czech Republic is a long ways west of the eastern part of Greece. Okay, let's wait and get the walk signal. So the division between Western and Eastern Europe is based on political and cultural differences. The political being all of these countries being communist previously, and cultural, many of them being Slavic speaking and Orthodox Christian, and various other different, cultural distinctions. And also, it is associated with being poorer, because that was the case for much of the history of the 20th century in particular. And so understandably then, people want to move on from that perception. And also, that perception is quite inaccurate, as I have tried to show in my videos of I've been to every Eastern European country other than Russia. And there is so much beauty, natural beauty, amazing cities. It is just so far removed from the very stereotypical, shallow perception of, the 20th century of empty shelves, and it's always gray and cloudy and very derelict buildings and all that. And so I totally get it that people want to move on from that. Looks like that is the building I'm staying in. And so I totally understand that people want to move on from the past, especially since there certainly was dark periods through that time. And the reality is that Eastern Europe is moving on from that in reality, in terms of economic advancement, countries getting a lot more tourism, getting more well-known, becoming real hotspots up there with Paris and Rome and London. And so Eastern Europe is changing, the perception of Eastern Europe is changing, but what will never change is that Eastern Europe is in the eastern part of Europe. And so that is why I'm still using the term, because the name of the direction is not going to change. We're still going to use the word east, and sometimes we might want to refer to Eastern Europe, we might want to refer to Central Europe, we might want to refer to Western Europe, Northern Europe, Southern Europe, Southwestern Europe. And so I'm not going to like just discard the word east from my travel vocabulary when what matters is that the perception is in fact shifting. And through my videos, you know, as one example of how people are being awakened to what there is to see in this part of Europe, then things are changing. Now, if the term for this part of Europe included a derogatory or a word that could be interpreted as being derogatory, like Lesser Europe or Lower Europe or Poorer Europe or, you know, something like that, then yeah, I would drop it. But no matter what you do, it's still Eastern Europe. And so I would say don't worry about the name Eastern Europe, because it's just one way of referring to this part of the world. Now, if I am in Slovakia or Hungary, then I could also say Central Europe, and I will say that, and I have said that in the past when I'm referring to Central Europe. But Central Europe means also Austria. If you look at the map, Austria is like right in the middle of Europe. You could throw in Liechtenstein on the border of Austria and Switzerland. You could include Slovenia in that. And so Central Europe would be a different specific geographical region compared to Eastern Europe. Of course, Estonia isn't in Central Europe, and the Balkans aren't in Central Europe. So when I'm referring to Eastern Europe, then I'm likely referring to it for a reason, because I'm referencing this entire part of Europe. So there you go. Hopefully nobody was too offended, but I'm still going to drop the name sometimes, because sometimes I'm referring to the entire eastern part of Europe, not just, you know, Central Europe or whatever. All right, let's get into my room. It is self-check-in. I have a code. This place isn't particularly cheap, but sometimes you get what you pay for. So 70 euros or $81 US, and look what I got. A really sweet apartment. Look at this big TV screen that I probably won't use. We got some nice pictures. Where is that? Is that Košice? So full kitchen, living room, AC, little shelves, old-timey radio, some books, microwave. Is that the fridge? Yep. Freezer. But where is the bedroom? It is down the hallway. More pictures. Okay, Thailand. Not James Dean, but possibly Steve McQueen. Not sure about that. Who's that? Clint Eastwood. Not sure. So, bedroom, very, very nice. Tons of closets and drawers, double bed. So, separate toilet, and then shower and, boom, laundry facility. So, I'm going to finish this video with one last little thing, which is my shoes. So when I was hiking in the Tatra Mountains in Poland, and also wore them in the Tatra Mountains here in Slovakia, then I showed that they were falling apart. People were saying, what are you doing hiking in the mountains in crappy shoes? You got to get some new shoes. So the only reason that I had them at all was because I was planning to come to the Tatra Mountains, and so I saved them, having bought them in Nepal, and traveled with them around Greece, and it was a real pain the whole time having these shoes that I wasn't wearing because it was hot. So here's the issue is on both of them, that thing coming apart. And just gluing them would be fine, because other than that, then they're super comfortable. I like the look. They're a cool style. And everything else is decent quality. There was just an issue with the glue. So they could just be glued and still last for a while. But I am just going to get rid of them, because from here I will very likely go to warmer places. And I'm totally tired of carrying those things around when I'm not wearing them. So goodbye to the shoes. They served their purpose for a good price, 12 bucks. All right, that is it for this video. 5 nights here in Košice, so I'm glad that I got a really sweet place. And so while I walk down there, I will tell a quick funny story from yesterday. So I hear a knock on the door at around 10 o'clock in the morning. I was just waking up, and I hadn't checked my email or anything yet. And so I go to the door, and there's this gruff maintenance, plumber looking guy, and he's kind of talking really animatedly. Okay, we have a bit of noise here. I think that this is the singing fountain. So is it a street musician or just music playing? So this fountain is multicolored. Oh, I see, we got speakers right there. So in the evening, once it gets darkish, then there are lights that make it multicolored, like pink and purple and blue and yellow. It's like really, really well done. So this guy is at the door, and he doesn't speak any English, and he's speaking kind of animatedly, and I have no idea who he is or what he wants. At one point he pulls out a piece of pipe from his maintenance bag or whatever and shows it to me. But everything was working in my room. There were no problems with anything that I knew of. And so I just didn't know what to do, because he didn't speak any English, and I was kind of groggy and still waking up, so I didn't think to do the whole, pull out the phone and try to do Google Translate or whatever. But even if I had, then I wouldn't have known that he was supposed to be there, because I hadn't checked my email. So I basically just say, I don't know what's happening, but I can't communicate anything to him. And so finally he gets the idea that I don't speak the language, and I don't know why he's there, and so he goes away, and I close the door. Wow. Really incredible artwork on this church. There it says Gloria. Saint Ladolaus, Saint Henricus, Saint Americus, Saint Stephanus. I guess that must be the tower that you can go up. Francisci Rakoczy II, 1938. Okay, I'll wrap up this story really quick here. So he goes away and I close the door and wake up a bit more, and I'm gonna wander over there, finish this story, show what's over there, and then come on back and try to go up the tower. And so finally I get on my computer and check emails, and sure enough, there's a message from Airbnb, because I rented that through Airbnb, telling me that there's going to be a mechanic guy, plumber or whatever, there, and to let him in. And so I write back and say, yeah, he was just here, I didn't know who he was or what he wanted, tell him to come back. And so 30 minutes, an hour later, something like that, then he comes back, and he's still talking just all animatedly and no idea what he's saying. And so I just let him in, and what he needed to do was replace a water meter part. That's what they'd explained in the Airbnb message. And so I let him in, and he does his thing, and then he leaves. Doesn't take too long, 10 minutes or something, and 15 minutes or so later I go into the bathroom to wash my hands, and there's no hot water. Like, dang it, one of these things where they fix something that didn't need to be fixed, and then I have a problem now when I didn't have a problem before. And so I go and send a message to Airbnb, tell the guy to come back. And then I remember, oh yeah, there's like a cupboard behind the toilet in the little toilet room. And I remember opening it, curious what was in there, and seeing pipes. And so I go over to that, open it up. There are two red levers. And so I switch one of them, and sure enough, the water comes on, the hot water, and problem solved. So there you go, just a little communication breakdown story.